Q A. It's Deb, and today I am dressed as your sorcerer of lymph. Today is about lymph, moving lymph, how to use your vibration plate to easily move lymph, and why vibration plates are just the tool to have. So if you're going out trick-or-treating with the kids tonight, like I plan to, I got dressed up for you guys, not the kids, honestly. But we'll be heading out here shortly, so I won't keep you too long, but I do want to give you a few tips, regardless of where you are starting as far as range of motion and what may be holding you back. I'm going to turn some lights on. So let's get this rocking and rolling. There. Now you can see me. So thank you for joining me today. If you're joining me and you are dealing with sluggish lymph, or your doctor or therapist has told you need to improve lymphatic movement, it's probably one of the easiest things that you can do as far as self-care. It's also one of the simplest things that you can do on your vibration machine, because guess what? Whenever you are on your vibration machine, your body is moving. And when you move, lymph moves. For any of you that are a part of my group, hello, Dolores. Thank you for joining me today. Anyone else who's joining me, say hello. If you've followed my group, I have a group specific to fat disorders, and it's a very big umbrella that includes anything from lymphedema to lipedema, Derkham's disease. But the one common link between many of these conditions that I support is a sluggish or compromised lymphatic system. And activity or exercise is kind of something you need to do to move lymphatic fluid. But unfortunately, if you are dealing with a condition, swollen joints, hypermobility, you're carrying excess weight, sometimes a sluggish lymphatic system or a clogged lymphatic system can make activity hard because it hurts and you've got inflammation. And so like I do in all of my sessions, I'm not going to talk too much about labels today. Symptoms, sluggish lymphatic system or compromised lymphatic system can be the result of a number of conditions, but it can also be the result of just sitting too much or being inactive. So when we move, lymph moves. If you're using your machine specifically for lymph now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I just wanted to give you a few tricks today. With something like lymphatic, I would consider it a therapeutic or a therapy type of treatment. And your sessions are typically, they don't have to be long. If you're doing a full workout or something more elaborate in the form of a program, the good news is you don't have to do anything special. Those micro movements that we know the machine generates and exposes to our muscles and our tissues and our tendons and our ligaments when we're moving assists in ramping up what movement would do already to our lymphatic system. By making it more effective, you're going to move more volume, you got circulation. And for those of you that are unable to partake in traditional activities, especially on a regular basis, I think you'll find your vibration plate is going to be the perfect tool to fit the bill throughout the course of your day. And with something like your lymphatics, you know, it's not a little bit in the morning and a little bit at night. The more you can move throughout the course of the day, the less you're going to be compromised and have things bottle up and into the evening. So, you know, treat these symptoms and manage them throughout the course of the day so that they're less severe towards the end of your day. So we're going to move over to the Rumlex. And I have my Vibe Scepter with me today. If you're dealing with poor mobility, poor range of motion, fatigue, as I always say in my sessions, you'll notice that I have started my body positioned in a chair. And for lymphatic movement, regardless of what movement styles your plate offers, I really prefer oscillating. Oscillating, as we know, mimics walking. Much less impact. It's moving your body from side to side. And what's so wonderful about lymphatic movement, even in a seated position, is you're moving. It might be more restricted to the lower extremities, but if you do spend a lot of time seated, you're spending, you're carrying excess weight and you tend to have swelling in the lower legs towards the end of the day. this is a good, simple little thing that's really not a whole lot of effort on your part to combat it throughout the course of the day, or if you're doing seated tasks already. So what speed or level or program is best? Really, for me, it's more about how you personally feel, your own sensitivities. I want your feet, when you're seated or standing, no more than hip width apart. I always talk about functional. We're not doing any martial arts training or anything where you need to stand really wide with your feet today. And if you're dealing with a lot of pain, or you're really swollen and your skin is tight, you might find standing too wide, or the intensity of the vibration is too strong. You're always in control. So bring your feet closer to the center if you want to reduce the amount of movement, and widen it up if you feel like you can take some more. And you might find throughout the course of sitting 30 seconds to a minute that you've loosened up and you've relaxed a little bit, those muscles, and the lymph has literally started moving. So you can widen up the feet a little bit. Before I get to a couple of standing positions, I want to talk about some common things that happen to people when you start using a vibration machine when you have a sluggish or clogged lymphatic system. You will not find a list elsewhere. But one of the most common things you're going to find, and I hear it all the time, is, oh my goodness, I had to pee right away, or oh, I had to stop because I felt like I had to take a pee. When you're moving lymph, guess what? It's pretty likely that you're going to start peeing a little bit more often. I don't want that to deter you. You might go through a little short-term period where you're peeing a little bit more frequently, and perhaps even with a little bit more volume. But I think you're going to notice a direct correlation with your swelling and your lymphatic movement. And that's just one really common thing that happens to a lot of people. It doesn't mean you need to have lymphatic issues, but whether it's a weak pelvic floor or excess lymphatic fluid, there seems to be a relationship with, especially my ladies that are dealing with lymph issues, post-surgery, post-treatment, that you tend to pee a lot when you first start the machine. So make sure you complement that with increasing your water intake. Make sure you're staying hydrated. The other thing that's really common when you first start using a machine and you have a lymphatic issue is you may notice an increase, not a decrease, but you may notice an increase in swelling in certain areas where you're already affected, or in new areas. The reason for that, we're starting to get the system moving more effectively, and it's likely that if you've got blockages or compromised volume flowing in one area, that you probably have it in other areas. So, if you're sitting like this, before we get to the seated position, I like to show this because it's really common to have those cankles, those puffy feet at the end of the day. And what you'll notice is that it'll dissipate, and you'll start maybe even increasing in sensation as the nerves have a little bit more room to do their communication piece. But what you might notice is an increase in swelling in the upper legs, the trunk, even the arms, and in other areas as your body churns and pumps that lymphatic fluid at a better volume more effectively in a shorter time than it has in the past with other activities. So don't be discouraged. It's really, I want you to push through and stick with it to keep things moving. And you'll probably notice within the course of a week, regular use, that you're going to have a general improvement overall. And long term, you're going to swell less and less over time. So we're going to resume into a little bit more of a weight bearing exercise. For those of you that are able to stand, we're going to get into some pelvic tilts and some other ways that I like to add basic lymph movement. For those of you that are suffering for fatigue, or I've already talked, you have to sleep, you can mix things up and get a little bit more of a total body effect, which standing will do. But if you're unable to stand for long periods, you can add your arms or your elbows to the equation you've got going on here already to get a little bit of upper body, neck, shoulders, the torso to become part of that equation. And I would encourage bringing your machine up to maybe a mid, even a higher speed if you find it comfortable, and keep those feet a little bit more conservative. You're going to get more volume. It's going to feel a little smoother and less choppy and bouncy than those lower speeds or program levels, especially if you're dealing with joint inflammation or hypermobility or things like that. So make sure you bring your speed up to mid speed. I want your feet no more than hip width apart. If you're sensitive to how it feels sitting, bring the feet a little bit closer, and we're simply just going to stand up. We want to make sure those heels are planted. we're going to keep the knees unlocked at all times, slightly bent in this case. I wanted your knees bent enough that you don't feel it in your head. You'll notice the taller you stand, the more the vibration kind of travels up the skeletal structure to the head. That means that you're standing too tall. Bend those knees a hair and you'll even hear the difference in my voice. And, for those of you that are noticing that you're peeing a lot more, which I mentioned earlier in the session, as you start moving more effectively and getting that lymph moving and churning, your body doesn't have a pump like your blood does. Your heart pumps your blood throughout your body and your veins, but your lymphatic system is pumped through your physical movement. So one of the ways I like to kind of kill two birds with one stone, and for those of you that are familiar with Kegels, you can do Kegels while you're standing on the plate. And I encourage you to work in some pelvic movements. So your pelvic movements, you're not moving your legs. We're just going to tilt the bum forward, clench those butt cheeks, do that Kegel, and then extend back till you almost feel a little bit of stretch in the low back. We're just going to keep moving those hips forward, maybe do some little circles. I just want to loosen you up. Many of you have poor lymphatic because you sit too much. So, you don't have to do separate things for lymphatic. Whatever you're trying to address normally using your plate. Maybe you've got a low back issue, just by standing here, you're moving. Maybe you suffer with restless leg and you want to do a couple of squats before you go to bed to fire up those big muscle groups. You're still moving, your body's still stabilizing. So, lymphatic movement and improving it is really, to a degree, a side effect or a side benefit, as I always call them, of using these plates. Lymph movement, circulation, balance, and stability. There's a couple of things that you will improve even within the course of a single session. Just a minute or two is really all you need. For those of you that are dealing with better range of motion and possess it, you can get a little more direct if you've got swelling in the legs, in the butt, in the hips. You can also sit down directly. We've done this in a number of sessions in the past, but there's always a lot of things going on with any one position. It's never really just one benefit that you're receiving from using your vibration plate. So on the theme of today, which is moving lymphatic, I mentioned earlier, maybe you're peeing a little bit more, maybe you're a new mom, and you've got a weak pelvic floor. You can, if range of motion allows, you can sit on the machine. You'll feel it's a little bit more direct into those hips and those low back. It's going to help with skin tone. It's going to help, maybe you've got some tight muscles. But while you're seated on the plate, do more of those Kegels. So, perhaps you're peeing more because we're moving some lymph. Perhaps you've got a weak pelvic floor and it's something that you're focusing already. If you have other exercises for pelvic floor or some stretches that you're to be doing for your lymphatic issues, again, a vibration plate, I always say, is simply an environment that makes those exercises and those stretches more effective. In today's world, with our session for lymphatics, it's just going to help you ramp up the lymphatic movement and the circulation while you're doing your positions on the plate. It's going to make them more effective at doing that. If you're tight and your flexibility is not so great, you can reach for the toes. There's a million different ways that you can vary how you play with your body angles and things on this plate. And the more you kind of shift your weight around and lean in different directions, you're going to feel it targeting different areas of your body. Another way that you can add upper body while you're sitting on the plate, you do feel a little bit of movement through the torso. But if you take your hands palm down, put them on the plate and sit on them. I've shown this a bazillion times, but sometimes it warrants reminding. You're going to feel a lot of movement in the upper arms, the shoulders, the neck. You can lean forward if you're a little sensitive to the head vibration. It's not harmful. I do encourage you try sitting straight up and maybe just tilt the head forward slightly, relax. Don't fight the vibration. You're just going to amplify it and make it more intense on the head. Make sure that you're breathing, relax. How often can you do these types of things? If you're dealing with a chronic condition, chronic lymphatic issues, and you have access to your machine, whenever you need a fix. I always talk about spot treatments. I'm a big fan. It's not always a big workout. If you're unable to be active now, you've got to have a starting point from which you can progress. And sometimes that means the vibration plate is the only thing that's tolerable to you. or perhaps you're using some compression garments or some red light. There's lots of different ways to stimulate lymphatics. And if you're in that below baseline world and it just hurts too darn much to move, some of that is going to be contributed to your sluggish lymphatic. It contributes to our immune system. There's so many different things that our lymphatics contribute to as far as the greater health of our body. So start there. If maybe it's you're sitting and you're putting your feet on it for 3 to 5 minutes once an hour. Maybe you are, while you're sitting there, you're gonna, put your elbows on the knees for 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be a huge time or effort commitment, but you can use your plate to start moving that fluid, start breaking down, the tension that your body bears in these swollen areas. And if you do notice intermittent or an increase in your swelling throughout the course of your day, sometimes you don't, you're on your feet all day. It's your job. You really can't avoid that. You can use this for a little bit before you head out the door or when you're heading home. Use it when you can. Use it often, specifically for the purpose of lymphatic. For those of you, like I say, that are undertaking more of a program and working out on the machine, the way that the lymphatic movement is going to help you is it's going to help you recover faster. If you've had a setback or an injury, it's going to help you repair and restore and get back to that sport sooner. So even if you are in an injury situation or you've had a bit of a setback, some of the stuff that I've shown you for chronic issues can dual purpose for recovery. Just make sure that the lymph is moving. When you move, lymph moves. So I hope that helps a few of you. Like I say, lymph movement and this wig is driving me nuts. So a compromised lymphatic system isn't your fault. Sometimes it's due to inactivity and food choices, but certainly all of these things can be managed and offset by simply or gradually, if you need to, increasing your activity levels. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to see if we have any questions. I know, like I say, many of you want to, you might want to have a shake and help detox from all the Halloween candy that you're going to be partaking or have been partaking. Don't buy those little ones. They're too tempting. Go for the full-size bars. You're less likely to open one. That's what I did this year. So Dolores has an appointment tomorrow to find out if she has femoral fracture or something is very painful. Moving or not, have stopped everything till I know. I'm sorry to hear that, honey. Yes, keep us posted for sure. If there's a fracture or a break, the last thing you want to be doing is shaking. But if it's a one-sided injury, you could, in theory, prop that leg up, keep it out of the equation, or and stand on the one leg because it's going to be nursing you and it might be a little extra tight or tense because of all the compensating it's doing for whatever you're dealing with. Dolores, if range of motion allows, you kind of have to play with it. There may be things you could do in a massage situation. Keep us posted and tag me, Dolores. Maybe I can give you some ideas once you have a little bit better of an idea as to what's going on. And I think my gal Lauren has offered you some insight there as well. I've also asked Lauren, she's dropped a link. I do have a group specific to what I refer to as fat disorders. I know many of you do not love that term, but until you understand some of the underlying conditions that you may be struggling with, it's not just fat. And sometimes that fat is painful. A lot of times we're dismissed and you could be dealing with lymphedema, lipedema, loose connective tissue disorder. There's all these terms, but until you understand the terms and how they may associate to you, sometimes we identify when we're surfing on the internet with the term fat disorders. And I invite, if you are dealing with a diagnosis, most of my group is dealing with below baseline and a lot of co-conditions as well. So there's a link there if that is something that is up your alley. Acupuncture physician group is asking what level. Levels and speeds are not really the language that I speak when we're dealing, especially with something like lymphatics. There's so many different models and they all kind of have their own unique settings. What I recommend is using it in oscillating modes. So the teeter totter. If you have other movement styles, that's what that's referred to. Pulsation or lateral, those are some variety that you can experiment with. But This movement mimics walking, and the intensity is controlled by your foot or your hand position. I would suggest a mid speed range or a mid level. The really slow levels and the really slow speeds tend to be more balance and stability, which is something we all want to improve. But it's much like being on a Bosu ball. It can be a little aggressive and really not that pleasant if you're dealing with inflammation and joint pain and things like that. So I recommend reducing the distance between your feet. Use oscillating mode, that side to side movement, and bring it up to a mid level, even higher depending on tolerance. You'll move more volume through more movements, faster times per second, and I think you'll find it as if it's less choppy, it tends to be more comfortable, especially if you're dealing with sensitivities like neuropathy and other things like that. So what else? I've also asked Lauren, I've had good fortune in my 15 years of nagging you about these devices, and there's a couple of world-renowned experts in the world of lymphatic movement, lymphedema in particular, and many of the other conditions under that umbrella. And she highly recommends the use of vibration plates, as does the Fat Disorders Research Society. So there's lots of folks out there that have embraced the benefits. And I think once you understand that a vibration machine isn't some separate thing to do or some other treatment you have to do on top of everything you're trying to navigate now, it's simply a tool that makes what you're doing or what you're supposed to be doing a little bit easier, a little bit kinder on the body, and you're going to get more done in less time. For my chiros, my PTs, my doctors, using it for a moment or two just prior to other modalities is going to improve your patient's balance. It's going to relax them. It's going to get the blood and the lymph moving. It's going to make their body more receptive to whatever you are going to do next. And for the same reason, you can add some recovery on after the fact for a minute or two. Not even a total of 2 to 3 minutes as a pre and a post treatment will make whatever other therapies, whether it's electrical stimulation, exercise, massage. There's all kinds of things that you guys are brilliant at, and this is just a tool to help make that body more receptive and further enhance the outcome of where you're going with your therapies. Vita says bilateral knees next week. Any suggestions for exercises? Depends on how bad the knees are, but the simplest, easiest way is do what you can before you go under the knife. Anything that you can do now is going to certainly assist in recovery, especially getting that lymph and that circulation going. But if you've never seen my ball trick, this is great whether you can stand or not stand. I'm going to go back to the camera. This is just a playground ball. I've got a little bit of air deflated out of it. And whether you're just sitting in your kitchen chair or on your vibration plate, you can add this just above the knees between the thighs. It's going to force those inner and outer muscles. And the reason I say just above your knees is you don't really want to hit on that area, but it's going to help all of that supportive infrastructure, the muscles, the tendons, and the ligaments. Just squeeze that ball slightly for 2 to 3 seconds and release. And you can do this while your plate is moving. Of course you can, because then you don't have to do it for as long, right? Sometimes the whole therapy exercise thing is just a drain because it takes time out of your life. So, the consistency piece and sticking with these things regularly is where the success is going to come long term. And I really want you to understand, I'm all about showing you how to use this to reduce the time so you can have more real time and less therapy time. If you're able to stand and bear your weight, you can also add this just above the knees, same position, to your standing exercises. You're going to get more of a total body effect, but you'll feel it in those hips. You can do your pelvic tilts. Another exercise that you can do while you're seated is keeping that core strong, girl, is going to be important. But, I don't expect you to be doing planks and push-ups when you're going under the knife. But brace yourself on your stool and just kind of lift and hold that ball and relax. Lift and hold for 2 to 3 seconds and relax. If you're unable to do that, just come up and do a little bit of a calf raise. Start there. Hold for 2 to 3 seconds and release. Come on up again for 2 to 3 seconds. Maybe you can lift for a second, but you're going to feel those lower abdominal muscles. Long term, this is going to help you not look so much like this, getting up out of your chair. So it really depends on where you're physically at. If you've got exercises that you're supposed to be doing, you can probably convert some of them to the machine. And one of the awesome things about using your vibration machine, if you are dealing with a pre, post, or just a chronic issue where, you can't take the durations because it hurts too darn much. You can get a lot more activity into those muscle groups in less time, less use on the joints. Your joints are going to be less sore after, not only because you're spending less time doing the exercise, but because you're expediting the recovery of whatever you've done while you're on the machine. Rhonda, I have been suffering from long COVID for almost 4 months now and have been told moving the lymph can be beneficial. Any suggestions using the machine? Everything that I've suggested today. What I would suggest, not really a COVID thing, but a sick thing. If you're not feeling yourself and, the energy levels tend to be depleted, you're probably not sleeping so good. If, is the energy. So in the same way that it boosts your lymph and your circulation, through that movement of blood and lymph, we're oxygenating the blood. And by keeping your sessions short, you can really boost your energy levels, whether it's to get you throughout the course of your day or get you to therapy. But you could try that, Rhonda, if you've got a plate. Try seated. If you haven't been using your machine, anything you can do is going to help move fluid. And yes, moving lymphatic fluid is a very important part. It plays a big role in our overall immune health. And, that's the reason that we, our body expels mucus and we cough and hack. That's all lymph fluid coming out. So maybe you have diarrhea, maybe you're throwing up, your body is expelling, whatever it doesn't want, and whatever, it could be toxins. There's a number of reasons that our body feels sick. So moving your lymphatic fluid, maybe not aggressively, it's kind of one of those gray areas. Should I work out when I'm, dealing, when I feel sick? Not necessarily. But oh, thank you for the gray. I tried to mimic my own look, but longer. I said I was going to have long hair before I was 50. But Rhonda, try using it for a minute, two, and let your body, when you feel the energy or physically you feel kind of shaky, if you're depleted, that's a clue that you should use your machine. Even like I say, if it's just for a minute or two, to counteract the effects, to boost that energy. And, maybe, you're probably not in a position to be working out and you shouldn't have. If you've been ill and if you've been laying in bed for some time, the muscles have depleted, the strength is depleted, and you need to build back up conservatively. So yeah, ramp the speed up, get those feet closer together, reduce the impact by bringing your feet closer, especially if you got the body aches and that too still, and just use it whenever you feel you need a lift. And tag me on that. That's a common one that I get, regardless of the label. Again, whether it's COVID or you've been dealing with bronchitis or you're just getting over chemotherapy. There's a number of reasons that our immune system is depleted, and getting that lymph moving and helping it assist in our body's natural functions is not only going to, a good idea as it's been suggested to you, but it's going to help give you back some energy that you're probably lacking. It's the same reason a lot of my clients with cardiac and heart issues, why whole body vibration is such an ideal activity, because of the energy and those short bursts. You can get so much done in a little time without depleting the energy reserves that you do have. Now, what else do we have? Rhonda says, thank you. Keep us posted on that. And who was having the knee? Vita, keep us posted on your knee. If you have time, do a quick shake on your way to the darn hospital. Get rid of some nerves. Get the blood, the lymph. It'll make the ride more comfortable. I wish that every hospital and every therapy office knew about these machines and had them there waiting for you. Many of my clinics do, and it's so funny. These poor patients go running in, and Debbie said I was supposed to do 2 to 3 minutes on the machine beforehand, and they know why, because they've already embraced the benefits. So certainly do what you can, Vita, for sure, leading up to surgery, especially if you're retaining fluid. You want to use it often to get that dissipated, and after surgery. Really depends on how the recovery goes. There's always ways that you can use your machine by modifying your weight. Maybe you're just putting the good leg on it, but you don't necessarily need to completely stop. We just need to get a little creative. And if you've been using your machine regularly leading up to surgery, or maybe you've had an accident or something, you notice your body misses it if you take a break. you start feeling sluggish and your body feels heavier. And if you did have swelling or your neuropathy starts getting worse, there's all these. Sometimes when you take a break from your machine, you realize what it's been doing, not just for your lymphatic system, but for other things. And until you stop using it, you don't realize some of the other things that you've benefited from. Who else have I got here? Thank you for dropping my shopping link. If you guys are looking at any products, of course, there's a variety available on Lifepro. And I thank you for not only, looking after yourself, but many of these products can be used, maybe in a different way, but there's no reason people in the house can't benefit from better lymphatics, whether it's your kids sitting at school all day, maybe you've got elderly parents that just don't get the activity they do. We have snow again in the forecast for tomorrow. So I know a lot of my seniors and my below baseline clients just, they don't want to be slipping on the ice and their activity levels tend to decrease. So a vibration machine can be a way to, maintain those activity levels. Plus you're getting the benefit. Like I say, anytime you move, lymph moves. And that's such a critical key thing for so many of our systems. What about venous insufficiency? Deb, are you prompting me? Thank you for doing that. Yes, absolutely. Anything related to the veins, that's going to be more specific to circulation. But some of you have painful conditions in those veins. I think, Deb, you might. But it's like anything else. You got to gauge your own tolerance. I absolutely recommend getting those feet close and ramping the speeds up. You want to get lots of blood flow to those areas. If they're not sensitive to touch, Debbie, you could even like massage the calves and the thighs wherever where they're prominent, where those areas that have been affected. Really depends on your range of motion. It's easy to get down on the ground. It's the getting up that sometimes presents more challenge. So use precaution. But yes, for things like venous insufficiency, anything to do with the veins or the lymphatic system, you get into the habit of using your machine regularly in short spurts, just as its own thing for those specific things. I think you're going to not notice an improvement in your symptoms, your energy levels, and a few other things too. I'm trying to reach my HRV as well. I do have painful veins, but the vibration helps. And Deb, you're a good example. If it's interrupting your day and activities, which I'm sure it is, spot treatment might be for the lymph and managing the pain, but it's a nice preventative piece. If maybe you're going to the mall and having lunch with the friends, even if you got your shoes on, however you're heading out the door, get on it for a minute or two as a preventative piece, even if you're not maybe feeling pain right now. And, how long and how often, the more you use your machine regularly, I think you'll begin to notice those symptoms are being managed and you may not need to use it as often. But if you're using it a little more often starting out, it's not uncommon, especially if you're getting relief. I'd rather you do this than keep taking the Advil and the Tylenol and the other things. Okay. Oh, thank you, Deb. Now, like I say, it is Halloween, so use your discretion. One of the best tips I can give you, I wrote a couple of newsletters for some friends and is feed the kids. I know myself, it's 4:00. I got to have her dressed and ready by 5:30 for friends. And, sometimes you spend so much time getting wrapped up in the costume and getting your display ready that you don't really have the best of meal. And if they go out with a good full tummy, it's okay to snack. It's hard to say no all night long, but they don't need to fill up on it. They may crave a little bit less if they've had a good meal before they head out the door, and pack some water. They tend to be putting a few more miles on the legs tonight. And even though it's cold and wintry weather here today, you tend to get a little bit warmer when you got the extra layers on tonight. So pack some water. And because today is about lymphatic and we're going to be moving some more at our vibration machines, stay hydrated. That's the best compliment that you can do, especially, like I say, because you're going to be peeing a little bit more. Short term, though, that will improve. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. Have a wonderful Halloween. I look forward to seeing you next week. I kind of screwed up at the end of last Monday's session. This coming week, we will be talking about back tips. Back at you. How can I help you fix your back, strengthen your back? It's not just about the back, but sometimes you're in so much pain and you left things so long that it needs its own special attention. So I'm going to go over some tips that you can use, just like lymphatics today, but more specific to your back, how you can treat things throughout the course of the day. There is no need to suffer any longer if you own a vibration plate. Thanks for joining me, guys. Have a great Halloween, and I will see you a week from today, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 Pacific. Have a happy Halloween.